Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and realizing that the price of gas, groceries, electronics, even your job security has changed overnight. Not because of a war, not because of a natural disaster, but because two countries, thousands of miles apart, made quiet financial decisions most people never noticed. No tanks crossed borders, no missiles were fired, no official declaration was made. Yet the impact reached every corner of the world. This is the real war shaping the 21st century. Not a military war, a financial one. A slow, silent struggle between the world's two most powerful economies, China and the United States. And the outcome of this conflict could determine who controls global money, trade, and economic power for decades to come. Because when finance becomes a weapon, everyone becomes collateral. So the question is no longer if there's a financial war happening. The real question is who is winning and what happens if one side loses. The illusion of peace. On the surface, the global economy looks stable. Markets open every morning, goods move across oceans, the dollar still dominates. China still manufactures the world's products. But beneath that calm surface is growing tension, because the United States and China are locked into a relationship that is both deeply connected and deeply hostile. America depends on China for manufacturing. China depends on America for markets and financial access. And both sides know this dependency is dangerous. This is not a traditional rivalry. It's more like two climbers tied together on the same rope, each afraid the other might slip or cut the line. How America built the financial world. To understand this conflict, we need to go back. After World War II, the United States emerged economically untouched, while much of the world lay in ruins. America didn't just rebuild the world, it rebuilt the system. Through the Bretton Woods Agreement, the US dollar became the center of global finance. Trade, commodities, oil, and debt were all priced in dollars. For decades, this system worked. America consumed, the world produced, and dollars flowed everywhere. This gave the U.S. an extraordinary advantage. It could borrow in its own currency, run trade deficits without immediate collapse, and use its financial system as leverage. The dollar wasn't just money anymore. It became power. China enters the game. China watched all of this closely. For much of the 20th century, China was economically isolated and poor. But in the late 1970s, everything changed. China opened its economy, and instead of inventing a new model, it studied America's history: industrialization, export-driven growth, infrastructure, state support for strategic industries. But China added one critical difference: control. While America trusted markets, China trusted planning. While America emphasized consumption, China emphasized production. While America allowed capital to flow freely, China locked it behind walls. This created explosive growth. Factories multiplied, cities rose almost overnight, hundreds of millions were lifted out of poverty, and slowly, quietly, China became the world's manufacturing backbone. A dangerous imbalance. Here's where the problem begins. America buys more than it sells. China sells more than it buys. That imbalance created trillions of dollars flowing into China. And China did something very strategic with those dollars. It recycled them back into the U.S. financial system, buying U.S. Treasury bonds, funding American debt, stabilizing the dollar. In effect, China helped finance the American lifestyle. But that relationship came with risk, because when one country holds massive amounts of another country's debt, finance turns into leverage. The dollar as a weapon. Over the past 2 decades, the United States learned something powerful. Control the financial system, and you can control behavior. Access to dollars, access to U.S. banks, access to payment systems like SWIFT. These became tools of influence. Sanctions could cripple economies without firing a shot. Assets could be frozen instantly. Trade could be disrupted with a signature. And China took notice. Because while China is strong economically, it is vulnerable financially. Its currency, the yuan, is not fully trusted globally. Its capital controls limit international use, and its access to the dollar system is ultimately controlled by Washington. This is the core fear driving China's strategy today. China's quiet counterattack. China didn't respond with confrontation. It responded with patience, slowly reducing dependence on U.S. dollars, signing bilateral trade agreements in local currencies, building alternative payment systems, increasing gold reserves, expanding the Belt and Road Initiative, not to replace the system overnight, but to survive without it. China understands something history makes clear. Every dominant financial system eventually creates enemies, and every empire that weaponizes money eventually encourages alternatives. Trade wars were just the surface. When trade wars made headlines, many people thought that was the conflict. Tariffs, restrictions, blacklists. But trade wars are loud. Financial wars are quiet. Behind the scenes, supply chains are shifting. Companies are diversifying away from China. China is building redundancy. Both sides are preparing for decoupling without admitting it openly, because a sudden break would shock the entire global economy. So instead, the separation is happening slowly, almost invisibly. Why the world is watching nervously. This isn't just about China and America. Every country is exposed. If the dollar weakens, global inflation rises. If China slows sharply, global growth suffers. If trust breaks, capital flees everywhere. History shows us what happens when rival powers clash economically. The British pound lost dominance after overstretch. The gold standard collapsed under pressure. The Soviet system imploded under financial strain. Economic wars rarely end cleanly. They end with crises. The real risk: loss of trust. Money is not built on paper. It's built on belief. Belief that contracts will be honored, that debts will be repaid, that rules won't change overnight. The real danger in this quiet financial war isn't collapse. It's erosion, slow loss of confidence, fragmentation of systems, parallel financial worlds. A dollar world, a yuan world, and countries forced to choose sides. History warns us what happens when trust fractures. Trade slows, growth stalls, conflict rises. So where does this leave us? China is not ready to replace America, and America cannot simply cut off China without hurting itself. This isn't a battle with a clear winner. It's a standoff, a long game of positioning, resilience, and adaptation. The future likely won't belong to one financial empire, but to a more divided, less predictable system. And the countries and people who understand that shift early will be the ones who survive it best. Because the quiet financial war isn't about domination, it's about endurance. If you found this breakdown valuable, like this video so more people can see it. Subscribe to Financial Documentary for deep, cinematic stories about money, power, and history they don't teach you in school. And let me know in the comments, do you think the future belongs to the dollar, the yuan, or something entirely different? Watch the next video on this channel to see how history answers that question again and again.